All right. So, welcome to Safety Nights. This is the show dedicated to protectors of the industry. Each week, we're going to sit down with elite safety leaders to uncover the mindset, the frameworks, maybe some battle scars, um, and wins that move the world forward. And this is where we learn who stands on the front line to help keep people safe. I'm Zach Johnston, and this is Safety Nights. We have Branden Raczkowski with us today. And I'd love to learn a little bit about you, Branden, if you don't mind. So, kicking things off, I'll hand it over to you.
Absolutely, Zach. And I appreciate you including me on this first ever Safety Nights
First ever
podcast.
episode.
So this is
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah. Congrats to guest number one.
Save the best for last. So definitely I'm going first. Uh, um, but yeah, where do you want to start? You want me to kick it off with my
Yeah,
safety
yeah, yeah.
background?
Well, I was going to say, first thing, I think most people don't choose safety, right? Safety chooses them. So I'd love to dive into, how you ended up here, what path brought you to the safety sphere, and where you're at today would be awesome.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting career path, I will say that, right? Graduated back in from college in 2009 with a biology degree, not safety per se, but the market, the economy was absolutely terrible. If you remember the
Yeah.
financial crisis, right when I was graduating from school. So, trying to make ends meet, took whatever job I could get. Was doing
Yep.
door-to-door life insurance after getting attacked by dogs and, car accidents and all that other stuff that led with the territory. I somehow, due to some of my other friends in the space that I graduated with, one had gotten his foot in the door at a green energy company, and they were looking for environmental analysts with science backgrounds. So he's like, "Hey, you want to apply?" I'm like, "Yes, I do. I'm tired of slinging life insurance here in the city of Buffalo." And
Right.
so yeah, I took him up. I interviewed. They gave me a shot. They looked at my science background. They saw I was an Eagle Scout, so they liked some of those things that were
There
on
we
my
go.
resume and gave me a shot. Had no experience. Walked in the door, and then they said, "Hey, by the way, our safety guy quit 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
Would you like to do safety as well?" And me having absolutely no experience, I'm like, "Hey, I need a job, so let's do this." Um, and I don't know, call it luck, call it willingness to participate. 12 years later, I was still in the EHS realm doing safety. Not for the same company, but of course, expanded, grew to be an EHS manager for a couple different companies, and um, by that point, I had 3 kids. Decided to become a vendor, and started building safety nights as we know it today.
yeah,
So,
awesome.
yeah, so been a software rep for a couple of notable EHS tech companies, as well as obviously running the Safety Nights community, which is the only social media that's been founded by and run for safety professions. So I think that's hopefully the authenticity breaks through there, and people
Yeah.
see and notice.
I love it. And don't let him sell you short. It's yeah, I mean, what we got 13,000 members now in this community, so it's pretty sizable for this small corner of the world. All you safety professionals out there, there's quite a few of us. Come on down and join the group, because we're all here trying to make the world a little bit safer, and trade stories from the front line. So I guess that segues pretty well into my next question. If you could take us back to your first exposure in safety, I mean, what did that look like when you started on the job? You're new, you don't know what's going on. What was your first like big moment, if you can remember, in safety, where you kind of felt like you were now a safety professional? What was that? What was that change moment for you?
Yeah, so it actually, like, my first 4 years in the industry, it was more administrative. I was
Mm.
doing like EHS specialist work, handling Title V air permits, and doing stormwater, wastewater, and administrating training and stuff like that. And then 4 years into it, I got married. Wanted to move into a house. We were able to find one. It was a 2-hour drive from my workplace. So through a couple couple of interviews and applying to jobs for 9 months. I finally landed something a little closer to home. I went from 2 hour drive to 1 hour again, and it wasn't terrible, but yeah, it was a manufacturing plant out in the middle of nowhere. Uh, and if you go to your grocery store, you might recognize the blue boxes of pasta on the shelf. So I became the EHS manager for a one of two Barilla pasta plants here in the United States. One's out in
Nice.
Iowa, the other one's here in the rural areas outside of Rochester, New York. So that was my first real like crash course into 24/7 manufacturing, going from the administrative behind a computer to boots on the ground, thrown right into the fire,
Yep.
24/7 operations for high-speed automated pasta lines. And wow, what a crash course that was. I mean, I was not ready for that, but drinking from a fire hose, just determined to figure this thing out. And definitely learned a lot there. A lot of focus on ergonomics and
Mm,
dealing with musculoskeletal disorders and lockout tagout and fire prevention. And you definitely remember walking the mezzanines to check all the fire extinguisher inspections. And
yeah,
if you've ever been in a bakery or a pasta plant, you know that it gets pretty hot up there.
I imagine.
So, middle of July up on top of a pasta line. I needed a change of clothes after my first fire extinguisher inspections because I was sweating through them so bad. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's when I really felt like, hey, I was in the thick of it with
you're
safety.
in it. I
Yeah.
love it. Well, and one thing that I know, we like to go to places maybe people don't, right? And this is for other safety professionals. Is there anything from your time there or anywhere else? Is there a big event that happened that maybe shaped your perception on how safety, matters? The impact that we're trying to make can really, if you hadn't been there, things might have been different, or the processes and procedures you're implementing hadn't been in place. Is there anything that rings a bell there in terms of a major moment in your safety career where the safety professional kind of made a difference, positive, or maybe something happened and it was the post lessons learned
Yeah.
that you guys took
Yeah.
away?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think definitely, right? Because there's been some places that while I was there, we didn't have anything, knock on wood, that was like catastrophically bad. Right,
Mm,
and definitely had my fair share of injuries. Everybody does, right?
of course.
Your strains, sprains, cuts, nicks, shoulder tears, whatever it is. But definitely recall, because I've kept tabs on all the places that I've worked and talked to the people, because I'm a big believer in building relationships with the people out on the floor. I think that's one of the best things we can do as safety professionals, which is, you know, knowing the people, learning what they do, why they do it. Um,
Yep.
just very relational in that matter. And I've maintained contact with a lot of the operations folks that work in those plants even after I've left. And I could hear stories from them. They hit me up on Facebook or text me or whatever it was and be like, "Oh man, like this thing happened." And in one case it was, hey, somebody lost a hand or lost
Yep.
a finger, or so and so got hit with a projectile out of a machine.
Yep.
And it's like, oh man, I would like to think that if I was there that wouldn't have happened. But I don't have that big of an ego to think that maybe it could have happened with me there too. But um you can see the absence of safety more
Yes.
than sometimes you can see actual safety at play.
Yep. No, that's a great line right there. Yeah. I think, been in the industry myself, and a lot of times coming back on a consulting job or coming back into a situation, it's usually post event. And I had one customer, a chemical customer, that had a big plant explosion, and they'd been safe for 25 years. And the EHS director of the time, who was kind of leading the project of change to try to prevent this from happening again, admitted they'd gotten complacent a little bit. They'd been safe for a long time, and they didn't realize that they were just one failure away from changing a lot of people's lives indefinitely. And then that's what happened that day. And so I think that prevention piece is safety usually goes sadly underappreciated and then they really hold the bag when things hit the fan. So that's a great story. I would love to know a little bit about what you know, your philosophy on safety a little bit, you know, generally what you see in the industry in terms of trends, kind of so present day, take us there. I know you're in a little bit of a different segment. You're working with customers now more than your boots on the ground. But just what you're seeing, what changes and trends are kind of present, and anything that you think the audience of listeners of safety professionals might benefit from, you know, somebody a few years advanced for some of the listeners.
Yeah, so there's a lot there's a lot going on, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you look at everything from the regulatory landscape through best practices through just how are things going, right? Like
Mhm.
and it almost looks like we've almost hit like a plateau, right? Where
Yep.
things from the 70s to now, right? Like people will tote the onset of OSHA, right? When they started tracking all these metrics and things, getting to a certain point where they kept decreasing year over year over year. And then now we're seeing like that's not maybe necessarily continuing to happen,
Yep.
right? And you almost wonder what factors are at play there. And I can't think that there's one specific thing, but maybe a culmination of multiple factors there. And you look at economically, how is the country doing, right? Like,
Mhm.
are we getting stretched? How are businesses doing? Because at the end of the day, there's pressure to perform, right? Safety, people will say safety is number one, but like businesses are trying to do things, right? They're trying to make
Yes.
make things or service things or do what they can because at the end of the day, we live in a capitalist society, right? Where people exchange money for goods.
Yep.
And people don't eat for free, so people are trying to make money, right? And you get to a point where maybe companies are all out of efficiency improvements or whatever they're doing, or that's, I think, when safety gets strained, right? Because it's not integrative with the process. And now we're pushing back because, well, we don't have the money for this or we don't have the time for that, right? And that just seems to be the way it was. I mean, I even look back when I was growing up in the 90s, right, and early thousands, and it just seemed like different times. Things were slower.
Yep.
Things were, life was slower. Life was seemingly easier, but that could be the nostalgia trap. I don't know. Uh,
True. That's true.
but yeah, yeah, it's definitely higher speed, higher stakes. It feels like.
Mm. No, that resounds a lot. You know, there was a study that just came out. I think it was Gardner that did it. I'll have to check. But they found that, you know, we've had this great decrease in minor and major incidents over the last 28 years or so. But the actual number of SIFs by industry has not decreased significantly. And it did for a while, right after about the time you said, you know, OSHA came into effect. We did see a pretty good drop off point, but we're starting to reach that plateau, as you mentioned, in terms of, I mean, the injuries that really matter, the injuries that f- change lives, and the injuries that break families, that safety is really there to prevent. More than anything, those are still trending. So I guess one thing I'd love to get your take on, is there anything in the industry and our trends that you're seeing that might help break through that plateau? There's, you know, obviously you're working with a lot of clients, a lot of big companies. Some of them are doing better than others. What are you identifying out there for the companies that are really leading the charge, that have, you know, above average industry DART rates and TRIRs, and you know, they're really performing well by the numbers, versus maybe some of your clients that aren't doing so well? Do you have any correlations or thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I don't have, I guess, enough data to prove, but like, to your point too with the SIFs piece, right? I actually put out a piece of content, or the community, our marketing people put out a piece of content. The old office meme, right, where Pam's like, "We'll find the difference between the two pictures," and it's like,
Yeah.
somebody tweaks their knee versus somebody dies on the job, and she was labeled TRIR, and no, they're the same picture because those
Yes.
metrics can't tell the difference, right? And
Yeah.
it's an event is an event, whether it's big or small. But to that, right, like I'm very hopeful with AI
Yeah.
technologies. And I think the ability to capture some of those things, in mass, right, in mass scale things, right, because I think we found that on a case by case basis, like you can certainly log things through traditional software, you can log things on an Excel spreadsheet, but we're able to, with technology, be more efficient, be in more places, have eyes on more things, and also create systems that make it easier for every other employee in the company to report things in real time, right? And I think more and more companies are starting to adopt that. The ones that really, really care about performance and efficiencies but I think, I mean, these things can really be great help for employers that want people to be safe, right? Of course, it's at the core. It's got to be a cultural thing within an organization that, that everyone from the top down doesn't want to see employees get hurt or
Yep.
maimed or whatever happens, right? And then that they really practice and I guess put corrective and preventative actions in place and actually take the time to interact with their employees and make sure things aren't happening. But those tech efficiencies help amplify good programs.
Yes. That's the ticket right there. Yep. They got to have that safety culture. I've seen this time and again. I mean, granted, we're on both sides. I did a lot of consulting for a long time. And the trend that we always saw was the companies that actually top down invested time, resources, energy, sometimes at the loss of profit. Sometimes it cut into profit. Initially, they usually had the best results. Safety was actually not just a term that was thrown around. It's very easy to go on your sustainability report or have the CEO, stand up and make some new claim of, reduction or target or zero incidents, but actually following through with that, like actually putting some effort into it. And what's interesting, there's also been a couple studies we've seen encouraging, I think, for you safety professionals. It's hard to get budget, it's hard to get approval, but there is direct correlation, a ton of data around businesses that are safer actually being more profitable. So there is a direct correlation. Having a safe workforce, the downstream effects of that is insane, especially in today's branding world. I worked with a major airline for a number of years, and they were one of the biggest players in the game. And they had one incident, mechanical failure on a runway, turbine blew through passenger cabin, and had some fatalities of customers. Made the news, obviously, lost $1 billion of stock overnight, and they almost lost their flight license for days. The type of stuff that could potentially irreversibly damage the business's brand. I mean, destroy the company. So that is the risk. The problem is on the other end of the ultimate spectrum, that's the risk of failure in safety from the CEO's perspective, from the business leader's perspective, where they're a little more, unfortunately, candid. I think a lot of people, they're looking at the bottom line. They're looking at the P&L. And so I think as safety professionals, we have to be very smart in today's world about addressing from their point of view projects and processes that we want to get in place. So yeah, I really hear what you're saying. I think one thing that I'll add to on the AI front, because we both dabbled quite a bit in AI. I sold for an AI company for a while in the safety world. There is some really cool stuff there that is just humanly impossible to mimic without AI. It's opening some doors to getting us from leading to lagging. And, Heinrich's triangle, everyone's familiar with it. The leading indicators are a direct correlation to the number of major, minor, and SIFs you're going to have. It's just a numbers game, sadly. And though the amount, and I'll tell you this off the record to all the safety professionals, but we did a lot of studies with our customers at this AI firm, right? So these were, not control group studies. This is anecdotal evidence at best, but we would take a site and compare it against another site. And once we started doing AI monitoring, it's continuous. It's through their camera systems. It's preventing very specific at-risk behaviors, right? It's not quite open book yet. The technology's still got some room to develop. But even on that scale, we were finding that they were getting less than 3% of all near misses actually being reported. And so what would happen is you'd be tracking this category. I mean, all of us safety professionals, you're looking at your top 5 leading causes of injury, and you actually might not even have the right data set. You might be identifying the wrong risks because you think these are your top 5, and they're not, because you're working on a very small subset of data. And so when we're talking about getting preventative versus reactionary, which is the goal, especially if we're all striving for that 0 incident number, that's really the only path forward, because we've taken it as far as we can. I think that's where the plateau came in. I think all of us have taken the technology, a lot of the safety practices, a lot of the lessons learned over the last 50 plus years. We've taken it as far as we can. And for us to get the next level, we're going to have to do something we've never done before. And I'm hoping that AI is that unlock. So plug for all of us out there on the pod. We work with a couple. If you guys are interested, we do some, gap assessment. We do some consultative work around this in the Safety Nights community. We have some good stories, some good references from some of the clients in the field that are using this. So happy to connect with you all on that front. I think it is the next frontier, the next evolution of safety. So we'll pivot. Yeah, go ahead.
Say one thing real quick. I mean, I'm a huge sports fan.
Yes.
One of the things that infuriates me is when referees miss obvious things, right? And
Yes.
we see this in the baseball world. They can't tell where if it's a strike or a ball, and it's like, well, we can see it on camera because they imprint the strike
Overlay.
zone,
Yeah,
the
100%.
batter's box, right?
Yep.
Right onto the screen, and it's like, oh no, it's over there, like you missed it. And the amount which they do miss is just outrageous. It almost like makes it tough to watch at times when they're so bad at it. And these are the best, right? Like they're the best at it. They're the pros. They're the top umpires in the country, right? But they still miss way too much. Whereas if we just, hey, you had an AI camera just calling it, like problem solved.
Yep.
I mean, it works baseball, obviously, right? There's a little bit more to it, more nuance in a world of safety and in a high complexity work environment. But yeah,
it works incredibly well in safety too. I mean, then especially, I'll give a specific story because I'm a big fan of, time and place stories. But we had a paper company. They were having a couple sifts. They never had this problem before. They have rollers. They're compressing the paper mulch down into sheets. They get jammed once in a while. Operations has a quota. The guys on the floor have a quota. Like you were saying, there's 3 shifts a day. It's a 24-hour facility. Stuff can go wrong. People are getting tired. What would happen a lot of times is they would go to unjam this machine, and they're supposed to shut it down. But if they shut this machine down too many times, they're going to get in trouble. They're going to miss their numbers, right? So there's this kind of counterbalance, again, misalignment a little bit between acting safe and then also doing the job. And they got in this position where people would get their hands caught in that, bundle, and it would get pulled into this high speed conveyor, and it was always 100% fatal. There was 0 chance of survival, and there was 0 chance of shutting the machine down, and they had 3 inside of a year. And it's unacceptable. I mean, this is, life-changing stuff. They couldn't figure out a solution because they told the employees to stop, and corporate wasn't fully willing to bend a whole lot on the quota side because it might not change behavior, to be fair. Now they can surpass quota, right? So they tried this at a few plants, and then people were like, we're just surpassing quota now. So they're happy, but it didn't create the behavioral change that they were looking to do. And that's where AI came in. They were able to monitor that machine and have a kill switch on the machine, and instantly when someone was in that risk zone, shut that machine down in real time, which is just something that you would literally have to hire someone and then give him a bunch of caffeine all day so he was fully alert and paying attention. Because the problem is, like, even if you hire someone, right, he's not going to be watching that vigilantly, whereas AI can come in and kind of fill that gap. And so they had multiple fatality preventions because that kill switch was instant, and it was always being monitored no matter what, 24/7. And so those are the kind of applications right now where I think AI still can grow, and there's a lot of amazing potential for it even today. But there are places where it is a no-brainer investment, and people just don't know it exists. And I think that's how a lot of technology, a lot of procedural changes and processes, and it's why we have this community. Somebody out there figured out a solution, and you might not know about it. And so being able to share that knowledge and that wisdom is just really powerful inside of the safety world in particular. So
yeah, and I think too, it's hard for people to stop and smell the roses, right? Because
yes,
our view of things, we're focused on what we're trying to focus on, but there's all this other stuff out there that we just don't have the time to go and seek a
Yes.
solution for, right? We're trying to just manage our workload. We have only so many hours in a day, and we're being pulled in all different directions. And I always say that nobody wears more hats than safety managers, because they've got safety, they've got IH, they've got ergonomics, they've got environmental, they've got sustainability. Um, Sometimes even they couple it with HR and quality,
Yep.
hey, we're short on
Loss
the line. Can you
prevention.
come out and help? Right?
Yep. Yep.
Whatever that thing is for that day, right? They've got to deal with it. So I think that is also another reason why the community exists too,
Mhm.
because we're trying to be on the forefront,
Yep.
and partner with great vendors and show people what's out there, right? And that's why
Yep.
we have our events. That's why we have our content piece. Like we put out articles, we put out videos, um, obviously humorous content, memes out on social media as well, which is probably how most people know us. But yeah, we're so
Big.
much more than that.
No, absolutely. That's amazing. Well, and I guess that brings me to another good point. How do you think, looking at safety, there's so many changes, and obviously AI is changing a lot of industries right now in general. How do you think the role of the safety professional is going to evolve, the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, I can already say, just based on this conversation, based on everyone that's tuning in, I'm sure you guys are aware, like, you're probably doing more with less, right? You're probably strapped even more so than usual. It seems like the margins are tighter than ever at every company I talk to in terms of, the profit loss statements and their budgets for the year. So, but I'd love to know just kind of how you think safety as a profession is going to continue to change and grow over the next, decade.
Yeah, and again, I don't think that the demand for it is going to decrease. But to your
Yes.
point, yeah, I think we're going to need to be doing more, right? And
Mhm.
managing more. But the types of things that we're focusing on is going to change, right? For the
Mm,
same way, like, hey, nobody's pounding away on a typewriter anymore either, right? Like, you can do the amount of work on a laptop that just far surpasses what a typewriter ever could. But I think there'll be less emphasis on knowing regulations, on knowing,
yes.
you know, um, like, what did OSHA say about this, or how did it interpret that? What does the EPA say we got to do? Because that'll all be tip of the fingers, right? I mean,
Yep.
you see Meta's coming out with glasses now that actually show you a screen right on your lenses. So can only see what's going to happen in the future, right? With that, and training large language models to be able to regurgitate or actually interpret that in
Interpret.
real time,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But nobody's ever going to want to take orders from a robot or a
Mm,
screen,
yep.
right? The things that we do that are relational, that require an EQ, right? They
Yep.
require us to be able to adapt and make decisions and critically think about things, right? And I mean, especially in the short to long, the short to middle term, like that's where our focus is really gonna align, right? You're gonna have less, like, I guess, probably field level, like, inspection filler out, people who fill out inspections or forms, and it'll be more, hey, how are we interpreting this? What decisions are we making? Um, how do we align safety goals with
Mm,
what the C-suite wants to do from a
yep.
business perspective, right? How do we integrate these strategies, right? And that's where you're going to find a lot of demand, right? If people know how to do that, right? I think that's going to be a huge, huge demand.
I love that. Yeah, that lines up with what I'm hearing too a lot, and there's a lot more data. There's a lot more analytics. There's a lot more expectation of prevention versus reaction. A lot of people are moving into, I mean, that's the expectation is like safety needs to actually be preventing. I think when I started, and this was, 12 years ago, not that long ago, there was a lot more focus on just getting compliance, right? Just being compliant, Can we get a little reduction? Like now it's starting to get a lot more. How much claim spend are we doing? How long before we report an injury? How much does that increase our expenditure? Can we get our self-insurance down 2 or 3%? I mean, these different
Downtime.
financial, downtime, right? Production loss, it's tying in with operations on equipment maintenance now, and people having to overhire because we got long-term injuries, we got disabilities, we got lost time. Like there's so many different things that a safety manager really has to consider. He does have to wear a lot of hats, but I'm hoping and I am seeing that the technology is at least unlocking the ability to do more than we've ever done. Unfortunately, we have to still do more than we've ever done. But the benefit of that, I think, is the impact you will make will be greater. You might not know that the guy, he still gets to have his hand tomorrow because of some AI process or some near miss program or a toolbox talk that you started running, changing the safety culture in some way, prevented that. But that's the benefit of you're making real impactful work at the end of the day. And so I guess everyone out there, that's the encouragement to you. There's a lot of guys, I talk to ops, we talk quality, we talk, some of these different stakeholders. A lot of what they're doing is just down to making more money. And you get to do that too, but you also get to actually improve people's lives and hopefully prevent the worst day of their life. And it's a pretty powerful position to be in my book. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, that is at the heart of it, right? I think safety
yes,
professionals, there's nobody more passionate about making sure that they're fulfilling their mission,
their
right? It's not
mission,
just a job.
mission.
It's,
Yep.
it is a mission. It's a calling,
Yep.
right? And I think, I mean, people aren't doing this because it pays the most. They're not doing it because of all the great benefits and incentives.
Yep.
Um, I got into it because there was an opportunity, but I stayed in it because I loved what I did.
Yep.
And I felt like I made a difference. And I know a lot of people feel the same way.
Yep.
And I think, though, as a profession, right, we need a rebrand, right? We need to not be looked at as like, oh, the safety guy is going to write us
Yes.
up, like, right, or the safety lady, right? Um, and I think if we can kind of shift the way we're looked at, right? I'm not a safety professional. I'm a business consultant who
Yep.
manages risk, right? Because we need to speak the same language as the rest of the business. And I
Agreed.
think
I
that's what's
think
going to
that's
drive our
nail on
profession
the head.
forward.
Yep. I agree. Well, and the bad thing is, I think there's too much stick and not enough carrot in some of these programs. A lot of people that I talk to, they're doing really well. They're doing things that incentivize the end user, the guy on the floor, the dude that's having that 10-hour shift to care. And it's hard to do, but it's a lot easier to do if everyone around him has the same belief system. I've seen some programs where people report near misses. Maybe there's some incentive, maybe there's some benefit, but at the end of the day, everyone's aligned that those are meaningful. And so every new hire that joins gets sucked into a really positive safety group. And sadly, I mean, we all know you're the average of the 5 people you're around. And so you as a safety leader can't always be one of those 5, but you can help make sure that you're next level down and the people that are working and reporting under you at least have that mindset. And it takes time. It's a culture shift. It's not just processes and procedures. And I think that's right on. You said the safety profession's not going away because that human element is just irreplaceable right now. So that's awesome. I guess just to close out, we're almost at time. I'd love to just a couple rapid fires. I mean, underrated safety belief that you have. Anything underrated?
That say that the culture of an organization is dictated by the worst behavior they allow.
Ooh, I like that.
So then looking at you,
That's it.
C-suite, I'm looking at you,
Yes,
ops directors. You got to follow the rules too.
I love that. That's good. What's the most overrated metric in safety?
I mean, DART rate, TRIR. I mean,
Yep. Yeah, I agree. We kind of touched on that. The TRI is a little too nebulous. We're not breaking it down. Everything's an event. There's not enough control for the nuance, and the devil's in the details a little bit there. So
yeah, I
no,
mean,
I agree.
somebody slips down the stairs, like, how am I supposed to stop that from
Yes,
happening, right? That's
yes,
human error, but it's all lumped in.
it's all lumped in. Oh, that's great. If you could make a CEO read or watch a video, piece of content, you got anything on the top of your head that everyone should go and, dive into once?
Well, shameless plug. I mean,
Yeah, shameless plug.
safetynights.com/content.
All
There's a
right.
videos tab right there.
I'll set you
Um,
up.
and I would say definitely have them watch our annual event because we had a tremendous speakers, at the last one, right? Set of speakers. They covered everything from, some emerging technologies to mental health to just a lot of great topics.
That's amazing. That's perfect. And then I guess just to close out, and this one's pretty easy for you, but where can people follow you? Where can we find you?
Yeah, right on www.safetynights.com.
There we go.
And of course, all of your major social media channels as well. We put out, lighter touch content that you can watch on the fly. But if you want to have real good, in-depth, safe conversations where you can even talk anonymously, it's definitely
Yes.
Safety Nights community website.
All right. Well, that's it for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll hit you next week with another amazing guest. Hope you are here for it. Till then, be safe out there.
Bye for now.